We will be starting the meeting in just a few minutes. Okay. Yes,
You could do it either way.
I'm gonna go look.
Yeah. And you get through it and
Friends at? They're not there.
so we had told them this because we thought you were coming to work.
Perfect, then let's just go that way.
Yeah, 12:30.
Still having this presentation.
Yeah, they're coming at 12:30 though, because we were gonna go in executive session. We told them to come about 30 minutes late.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
I don't play right too. Salud.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go ahead and take the roll, please.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Here,
Mr. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Fryer?
she's here, she's on her way up, though. I
And
do
Mr.
know
Parker?
Yes.
that. Okay. Our first order of business is the regular board meeting of January 2023 and the organizational meeting of 1/19/2023. So moved.
I'll move second and move of those minutes.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer? Yes. And Mr. Parker? Yes.
Our second order of business is the Joint Finance and Human Resource Committee meeting of 1/17/2023. If there's no omissions or additions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I move to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment of a public employee.
Seconds.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. If you just give us about 20 minutes, we should do that. Just need a couple minutes with the board, and I think we're going in the back room.
Sure.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so.
I'm gonna go downstairs and get my notary stamp.
I did. Yeah.
Perfect, we're just gonna go to the back room, it takes too long.
All right. Sir. Yeah, how you been? Doing well. Good. Downtown. Over to these. Yeah, we're both West Virginia guys. So you back in town now? Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Believe it or not, see how good he looks. I used to exercise with him.
You're the mayor.
I'm gonna, like I said, leave for us to have the time.
When I was growing up. Sound, like
They just worried about what, I thought the new speaker was not going to be as bad as the old speaker.
Commissioner Director.
Carrie? I'm not asking you to do it, but somebody needs to get for us the ammunition about what abolishing the rollback would cost us. The new speaker announced yesterday, it was in this morning's paper, that he's going to call for repeal of the rollback.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, yeah.
So we need to know.
It should be on Shanice's radar.
Well, and we need to have
Well, I
a
was
dollar
gonna-
number.
I was gonna say something, Ed.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
What happened? What did we do? We did good. Can we go ahead and call the meeting back to order, Michael, please?
In the motion.
I moved to reopen, we left executive committee and we're reopening the board meeting.
Ms. Butts,
Here,
Mr.
yes.
Corrigan,
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Fryer,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
And Mr. Hairston.
Yes.
Before we move on to, because there was no quorum at finance committee meeting, I moved to temporarily suspend the regulations of the Board of Trustees, Article 9 and 10 require referral of resolutions to committees. Consider the following resolutions.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Tom.
Ms. Butts.
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Hairston.
Yes.
Ms. Fryer,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, our next order of business is we have a presentation from Fran Match and Kathy Schaefer and Karen Bach, is that it? Thank you, ladies, for coming. Please.
I'm Fran Mensch, and I want to thank you for letting us speak to you today. Kathy, Karen, and I represent thousands of others in the South Euclid, Lyndhurst, and Cleveland Heights area who work to try to save our local Cuyahoga County Community Branch, the South Euclid Lyndhurst branch, the historic Telling Mansion Library. This $508.71 is what remained of the funds raised for our failed effort to save our library. We are giving it to you because, in contrast to what Director Sari Feldman and the Cuyahoga County Library Board did, you and your organization listened to your community and made the right decision about the South Branch. This donation is our community's thank you for listening to the people you serve and deciding to preserve your wonderful Carnegie South Branch building for this generation and the next. I hope you realize what a good thing you did for that neighborhood and the city of Cleveland. This November, while waiting for a family member who was being treated at Metro Health, I spent 2 long afternoons in the South Branch. You are to be congratulated, not just for preserving that building, but for accomplishing something much more difficult, for establishing the positive, warm culture there. It is a people-friendly, people-focused, comfortable, and happy place to be. Congratulations to you and the branch staff for this wonderful accomplishment. So, thank you too for the opportunity to put closure on what for our community was a disillusioning, discouraging loss. It is not hyperbole to describe Sari Feldman and the Cuyahoga County's Library Board's decision and its process as destructive and even sadistic. For those of you who do not know the Telling Mansion, it's an Ohio landmark and on the National Register of Historic Buildings. This branch was paid for and loved for 62 years. It cost William Telling $700,000 to build in 1930. So you can imagine how beautiful and unique the materials and the architecture are. We lost what many people, mostly children, refer to as our castle library. We thank you for saving your South Branch Castle Library. We got in the place of the Telling Mansion what the intellectual Susan Sontag described as fascist aesthetics, as she defines it, based on the containment of vital forces, movements are confined, held tight, and held in. I also have a question I messed up here. I wonder, I would love to know how many of this fascist aesthetic basically replaced Telling Mansion, and that was the nature of the capital plan that the Cuyahoga County Library used. And my question is, how many members of that board bought the Build Back Better America bonds that were federally subsidized, providing a much higher interest rate? I wonder how many of the board members who approved the use of that capital project actually purchased those bonds. So in final, I thank you for saving your castle library, and thank you again for your good work and for letting us speak today.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy, if I could
That's
please.
Fran.
That's Fred.
You know, I am so sorry, and I knew this. I have a new project for you. I know you ladies are big fans of Carnegie buildings. There's a beautiful one in Puerto Rico that needs some attention. So when you're planning your next outing and you like the warm culture, it will be there for you. Make sure there is a beautiful building there. It hasn't been used since Hurricane Maria. And I just wanted to let you know, I visited myself.
Great.
And it is a gorgeous building. And if you are down there, please give me a call. I'll put you in contact with the right people to get that library open.
Nice, thank you.
It is. Look it up, please do. Thank you, ladies, so much. Okay.
Kathy, want to say something?
Oh,
If you don't
please.
mind. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to brag a bit. It was my idea to donate to the Telling Mansion contributions to CPL. I was always so impressed that your board patiently listened to our pleas to save Carnegie South from closing. That was once discussed. I became familiar with South Branch when I worked at Children's Services at the corner of Clark and Scranton and walked over there for lunch almost every day. I love the building. It spoke to me, and I still marvel how beautiful buildings and beautiful architecture can inspire a person and make them feel at home. I can still recall you actually met with our activist group on a Saturday. That's another first. On a Saturday afternoon to listen to our pleas to save the Carnegie legacy. We thank you and hope that these leftover contributions of $508.71 to save the Telling Mansion as a special library space will help South Library continue into the future. The people who gave their money to save Telling Mansion would surely agree the Carnegie Library was well worth saving. And we're truly grateful to your library system. It's always been my preferred. Thank you for your help and efforts.
Thank you.
You can stay for the
You can
meeting or you can be excused, whatever you want to do.
It's okay if we.
Absolutely, no problem.
Whatever you like.
I'm about to go into finance committee and that.
That might put you to sleep. Thank you so much, ladies, once again. Our next order of business is a letter from Wendy Knapp, the state librarian, for the State Library of Ohio.
Yeah, I won't read the whole thing, but I do want to read the last two paragraphs. We do not believe the Cleveland Public Library's omission from the 2022 American Star Library list indicates anything about the quality of services to your patrons, nor the great value you offer your community. Furthermore, Library Journal indicates in the frequently asked questions section on whether the LJ index measures the quality, excellence, effectiveness, value, or appropriateness of library services. They state that no, the index measures none of these. By definition, service outputs do not reflect quality, excellence, effectiveness, or value of services to the library's community. This is a letter from Wendy Knapp, our state librarian, who in deciding to send forward whether to send forward the statistics for that Library Journal looks at in its 5-star rating, decided that she would not, that no statistics from the state of Ohio would be sent forward. And therefore no libraries from Ohio were part of the 5-star
What was her
library
reason?
rating. Her reasoning was that it was as she said here, is very little typical about the 2020 calendar year, and they were kind of overwhelmed. So the star rating is always 2 years, typically 2 years behind. And you'll put in for 2022, you're putting in 2020 statistics. So she decided not to, which.
Because libraries were closed so much of that
Oh,
year.
yeah, you know, we of course appreciate being a 5-star library, and have always appreciated, and as you can see with all of the 5-star library posters around, we take it seriously. Not quite as serious as some of our other libraries who had a very, some very difficult and challenging words for Wendy. So the state librarian sent a letter out to all of us to state what her decision was and why she had done it. And of course, this is kind of her form of apology. But I just wanted to share this with you. In 2022, there will be no Ohio library that's a 5-star library, and neither will we be. But this is our pound of flesh that was returned to us from her of stating that this is kind of what happened.
Yeah,
So,
the other aspect.
yes,
The other aspect of this to keep in mind is that Ohio on libraries is so far ahead of almost every other state that the idea that somehow they would use the statistics in 2020 to denigrate Ohio's role, leadership in libraries was not something Wendy was prepared to tolerate. So she basically said, no, we're not gonna send Ohio's numbers in because this is a phony year. And you're not going to use phony numbers to hurt our reputation. We're still the Ohio public library system. And it's in the country. We've always had more 5-star libraries than any other state. We've always spent more on new collections than any other state.
And whenever we go to national conferences, everyone's jealous of us.
Yeah.
Right. So I understand why she did it. I know for those who want to see the plaque, but I kind of, from my point of view, I'm kind of proud she did it and glad she did it. Because that we're not a 5-star library for 1 year is not significant as significant as it would have been to somehow be part of that process fully and falsely denigrated. So I'm kind of glad she did it.
Well, I will share that thought with you. You are one of very few among the state who see her side of things. So, but yeah, so I just wanted to share that with everyone.
I want to see my 5-star.
Well, some libraries actually have it written into their evaluations and things of that nature, so they were not very happy. So,
Go to Finance Committee.
Please, we're now going to move into the Finance Committee report. Trustee Corrigan, please.
Yes, Exhibit 1 is a resolution to accept gifts for the month of January. Resolved that the gifts described in the gift report for January 2023 be accepted upon the conditions connected with said gifts in accordance with section 3375.40K of the Ohio Revised Code. So moved.
Ms. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker? Yes.
Exhibit 2, a resolution to accept grant funds from the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as starting point for MyCom out-of-school time transition programs. Whereas the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as starting point in the Cleveland Public Library have formed a partnership for the provision of out-of-school time transition services. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Cleveland Public Library pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 3375.40K hereby accepts a grant from the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County doing business as starting point in the amount of $75,000. Be it further resolved, the Executive Director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of this resolution, including those for amounts in excess of $25,000, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's Director of Legal Affairs. So moved.
Second. Can I ask a question? At which branches are the STEM robotics being spent, this money being spent where?
So we have Mr. Bird here, our Director of Education, and he can provide additional information on our STEM program.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so coming up in the summer, we're going to have the South Branch that's going to be involved in the STEM robotics program. And then there's 7 other branches that's going to be involved in the STEM robotics program in the fall: Langston Hughes, Jefferson, Memnon, Mount Pleasant, Rice, Woodland,
Wait, after Mount Pleasant, which was,
Rice,
right,
Woodland, and Carnegie West.
thank you.
And currently, we have a couple of robotics programs in some of our CMSD schools where we have a collaboration with 2 of our branches. For example, Andrew J. Rickoff in the Mount Pleasant branch, where some of our branch staff members are co-facilitating the STEM robotics program at Rickoff. And the same thing for Glenville branch and Stephanie Tubbs Jones, where there is a robotics program that's going on over there. So, but all total, we have roughly 6 CMSD schools that have robotics programs, which is a total of about 220 scholars, all total.
Really, 220 kids doing the robotics. Okay, great. And then the academy, the Young Scholars is in which school, which branches?
For Young Scholars Academy, for our beginners program, which is for 3-year-olds, we have it at the Huff Branch, the Carnegie West Branch, and then there's a virtual program.
Right.
And for the transitional program, which is for students 4 to 6 years old, we have a program at Rice, West Park, and then a virtual program.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Byrd.
Yes.
I talked to Kelvin about this, Scott, and I think the answer is yes. You still got a partnership with NASA.
Yes. So yes, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to figure what the partnership is at all the schools you got.
Yeah, so all of the branch managers, as well as some of the children's librarians or the library assistant, all of them went through a training with UB Tech, which is the company that we purchased the robotic kits from. And we hire a consultant that works with those people, that goes out into the school. And our connection with NASA is that there's a individual that works at NASA that also works with our children librarians, to troubleshoot any kind of assistance that they may need to facilitate the STEM robotics program. And then also the library has applied for a grant that's called SEEP, which is coming down the road. We had it last year too. And with that grant, we're gonna also have a NASA consultant that'll be connected to that as well. And this is all grant funded, so.
Are they still involved in competition, or it's just basically school level?
Not at this point in time. There's some conversations around all of the schools and the branches that's involved in the STEM robotics program to do some kind of culminating activity where they will showcase their skill set, their talents on the coding process that they've learned with the robots. Now, if you want to see a wonderful STEM robotics program in force that has taken it to, a higher level, are the scholars over at John Hay School of Science and Medicine. They're making these robots over there. They're making them dance and sing and everything else. So it's just, fantastic, with what our scholars are doing. I don't think our scholars can go wrong with, being involved in science, technology, engineering, and math. All it's going to do is put our scholars ahead of most other scholars that's not part of those areas in field. So.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. And so keep us posted on that application that involves the NASA thing. Yeah. Keep us. Well, he said there's an application for this grant that's applied for, but you haven't gotten it yet.
It's in the making over in the school district. I think it's in their accounting office, and then they'll ship it over to our area. And then we have to sign off on it, go before the board. We all know the steps.
Maybe by next month. Thank you.
Yes, hoping, keeping my fingers crossed.
Very one other thing, please note, and I think all find information here, and first here at the library, because there's a guy in the audience named John, and you tell John, find something, he'll find it Next thing you know, I got a picture that's sitting in my house, so I don't know how he does it so quickly. But East Technical High School was #1 in the United States of America for inner city schools and won the first competition. And nobody believed those young people coming out of East Tech could in fact beat everybody in the United States. The second accomplishment is when we won the basketball championship here with LeBron James, that same year, the robotics program produced a #1 winner in the world, beat Sweden and Germany, and won the #1 spot in the world.
Really? How come that was
Absolutely.
never?
What overshadowed them was Cleveland Cavaliers won.
Oh, that was
That's the same time.
All this parade stuff ready for the kids, and everybody was down to Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm not ready, I haven't gotten over that yet.
Uh-huh.
But my point is that these young people people didn't expect to be able to do anything.
Mhm.
We ended up having 50 engineers to volunteer out of NASA to teach them pre-engineering and everything else. And they beat everybody in the United States first. And 5 years came back and beat everybody in the world.
Wow, and then it
It's a
got
good program.
overshadowed in the news.
And by the way, there is a program over at East Tech that's going on currently right now, with the library, so. About 40 scholars over there.
Perfect.
We got a history.
We have to take the vote, correct? Yes.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
And the companion piece to this previous exhibits grant resolution to advance cash from the general fund to the MyCom fund. Whereas a cash advance from the library's general fund to MyCom fund is a desirable method of resolving cash flow problems without the necessity of incurring additional interest expense for short-term loans and provide the necessary seed for grants that are allocated on a reimbursement basis, like the MyCom grant. Resolved upon adoption of the resolution, accept the grant funds from Child Care Resource Center, Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as Starting Point. This board authorizes that the general fund advance cash in the amount of $75,000 to the MyCom fund for the purposes of which the funds were established, for which repayment in equal amount is made within a year until all requests for reimbursements have been received. So moved.
Second,
Ms. Bunce?
yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 4, resolution to accept pass-through grant from Cleveland Public Library Foundation for the Summer Lit League programming from the First Energy Foundation. Whereas the First Energy Foundation's contributions to local nonprofit organizations help strengthen the social and economic fabric of our communities. Funded solely by First Energy, the foundation extends the corporate philosophy providing community support. Whereas reading is fun and is crucial to developing the mind, the Summer Lit League helps participants build vocabulary and gain stronger critical thinking skills. Whereas the funds received from First Energy Foundation will be used to purchase prizes and program incentives for the Summer Lit. Resolve the Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees pursuant to authority set forth in RC 3375.40K hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $5,000 to First Energy Foundation passed through from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for deposit into the Founders Fund account 20304646100318001 restricted gifts, and be it further resolved that the executive director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions as resolutions, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs. So moved.
Second,
Ms. Bunce?
yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And it's hard not to mention the difference between $5,000 and 60 million going, but that's the front page and we don't talk about it. So. Exhibit 5, a resolution to accept a pass-through grant from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for refresh and retool grant from the Best Buy Foundation for the Rockport Branch's Best Buy Teen Tech Center. Whereas the Best Buy Teen Tech Centers beyond their first year of operation are invited to request up to $10,000 to the Refresh and Retool Grant for hardware and software upgrades to enrich the overall technology and infrastructure of the teen center or to support the teen center's physical infrastructure needs. Whereas the Cleveland Public Library Foundation applied for and received a $10,000 grant for hardware and software upgrades to the Teen Tech Center at Rockbrook Branch. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 3375.30K hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $10,000 from the Best Buy Foundation passed through from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for deposit into the Tech Center's fund account restricted gifts, and be it further resolved that the executive director, CEO, as designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate terms and conditions as resolution, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs. So moved.
Ms. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker? Yes.
Exhibit 6, another resolution to accept pass-through grant from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation, this time from the anonymous donor in support of the Young Scholars Academy. Whereas in October 2020 and again in June 2022, the Cleveland Public Library Foundation received a gift of $6,500 from an anonymous donor in support of the Young Scholars Academy program. And whereas the same anonymous donor has made a third gift of $6,500 towards Young Scholars Academy program, be it resolved that the Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 3375.40K hereby accept an anonymous gift in the amount of $6,500 to be deposited into the Founders Fund account restricted gifts, and be it further resolved that the executive director is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of this resolution, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs. So moved.
Ms. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 7, a resolution to accept Bruning Foundation grant for capital enhancements, whereas the Bruning Foundation is part of a community conversation thinking about and learning best practices to address and lift families out of poverty in our community. The Bruning Foundation supports grantees that are doing important programming and changing the course for families living in poverty. Whereas the Cleveland Public Library Foundation applied for a grant under their Facilities Master Plan Enhancement Campaign to improve and activate public spaces at 3 neighborhood branches, Woodland, Huff, and Walls. The goal being to create welcoming and inclusive environments that address changing service needs and expand CPL services and programming directly into the communities they serve. And whereas the Bruning Foundation awarded Cleveland Public Library a $300,000 grant to design and create spaces where neighbors can gather to learn, explore, connect, and collaborate. These spaces will be activated through a mix of public art and site amenities that respond to the unique generational needs, culture, and spirit of the diverse and distinct communities each branch serves. And whereas the Cleveland Public Library again acknowledges the Bruning Foundation as a strong and valued partner in our work of supporting low-income families in Cuyahoga County and ensuring the settings in which they live, learn, and play foster their optimal development. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 3375.40K hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $300,000 from the Bruning Foundation for deposit into the building and repair fund account restricted gifts, and be it further resolved that the executive director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of this resolution, including those for amounts in excess of $25,000, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs. So moved. My wife is chairman of the Bruning Foundation at the moment, so I wanted to tell everybody I will be abstaining only for that reason, so there's no appearance of conflict. And I had nothing to do with them giving us the $300,000. So just so you know, I'm grateful nonetheless. So moved.
Second.
Abstained.
Ms. Potts?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 8 is a resolution to accept a Bruning Foundation grant for family place training. Whereas in October 2022, the library accepted a grant from United Way of Greater Cleveland to create 2 family spaces within its Huff and Carnegie West branches as part of a larger county effort to provide safe, accessible, welcoming places that prioritize the needs of families with young children. And to further support family spaces, the Cleveland Public Library applied for and received a grant of $25,270 from the Bruning Foundation to cover the costs for 4 CPL staff to attend the Family Place Libraries Training Institute offered in New York in the spring of 2023. Be it resolved that the Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 3375.40K hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $25,270 from the Bruning Foundation for deposit into the Early Literacy Fund account 258046-46100-30801 restricted gifts. Be it further resolved, the executive director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of this resolution, including those for amounts in excess of $25,000, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs. Similarly, so moved, and I will be abstaining.
Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Abstain.
so noted. Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mr. Hairston,
Question. Will this cover all the expenses that we need to have?
For the trip and the training? That's a good question. Tracy Martin?
Probably no.
How long is the training for?
It's a week.
No, that's why it won't cover it.
Yeah, it's a very intensive training focused on the family space programs that we have at Carnegie West and Huff now. So it's an amazing opportunity, albeit an expensive one.
Yeah. I think we'll probably end up covering their cost for travel and reimbursement. They're covering the cost of the training actual.
Okay. I like it. Just wondering how we're gonna do it for $25,000, but you gave it down. You can't.
Exhibit 9, a
Wait, I
resolution.
don't think that-
and Mr. Hairston.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Fryer
Yes.
and Mr. Rucker.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize we hit. Exhibit 9, a resolution amending project budgets for the Huff Branch and Lorraine Branch. Whereas on July 6, 2021 and October 21, 2021, the board approved total project budgets for the new Huff Branch and the renovated Lorraine Branch, respectively shown in Exhibit A to this resolution. And whereas the Chief Operating Officer in Regency Construction Services, Inc., the construction manager of Phase 1B branches further recommend increasing the owner's contingency architect's fee and furniture, fixtures, and equipment budgets for the Lorraine branch by a total of $130,000 as set forth in Exhibit A to cover additional repair expenses associated with the fire damage sustained in November 2022, structural assessments and permit modifications, expanded construction administration, and additional necessary work unrelated to the fire, including floor leveling, plaster repairs, roofing work, and the installation of an automatic transfer switch. Now therefore be it resolved that the board approves the amended total project budgets for the Huff and Lorraine branches as set forth in Exhibit A to this resolution, which expenditure shall be charged to the construction tax exempt fund 402 and or the construction taxable fund 403, and be further resolved that the board authorizes executive director, CEO, or his designee to execute such instruments and agreements as are necessary to effectuate the terms of this resolution, including an amendment to the agreement with HBM Architects, Inc., the architectural firm retained by the library to design the renovation of the Lorraine branch, which instruments and agreements shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs, and which expenditures shall be charged to the construction tax exempt fund 402 and or the construction taxable fund 403. And further resolve, the board authorizes the chief operating officer to reallocate the budget amount set forth in Exhibit A for the owner's contingency fund, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, and owner direct costs as needed, provided that such reallocation shall not increase the overall budget approval for each individual project. So moved. And Mr. Lang, I guess we just confirm this is a result partly of the fire and then other minor changes of the two.
It is, yes, your board already approved some additional fundings towards the fire damage. That was, I think, in December. We were still collecting repair costs. Ultimately, the cost came in a little higher. There's the additional design fees for the permit modifications that happened this week. And then some of the other items were normal construction contingency items that outstripped the reserves we had. So that's the other part of the
But we're still under the original July and October budget amounts. Except for these changes.
You should explain to our audience how the fire was started because a storm blew over a electrical
Yeah.
pole and
Well, yeah, well, our guests might be interested to know that HBM Architects is the same firm that designed the South Carnegie renovations. And that our Rank branch is also one of CPL's Carnegie buildings. So we're excited to reopen it later this spring.
fortunately it didn't destroy the newly done skyline and all that.
It did not. It did. So we had a First Energy power pole that toppled in a storm into the building. There's a metal cap flashing on the building, which sparked, led to a roof fire, which was put out by firefighters, water, all that. The building sustained damage. And so, as a reminder to the board, also, the building was under the builder's risk policy. The library had held for the duration of construction. So we're in the process of submitting our claim. They actually have all the contractors' costs and the architect's costs. It's being processed right now. So some of this money will come back to the library. Our deductible policy is $25,000.
Yeah, that was my other question.
But of course, we're writing the change orders now to authorize the work, and a lot of the work has already been completed while the insurance is being settled.
And basically, since the Huff branch is open, is this the last probably increase on the amendment?
Yeah, I hate you for this one. This is, to be clear, this is not a construction cost change order. We're in the closeout with Bill Bain. This is for additional owner direct cost to buy out final technology. We had some temporary technology installed for opening, and now this is buy the projector for the community room, the flat screens for the gathering spaces, and the other sundries that are.
Okay. So this will be the last, probably the last thing we'll see on the Huff branch, which is reopened. And obviously the Rain branch is still in process, but there is insurance for a lot of what this owner's contingency and other is being charged.
Yeah, and so when that comes back, I mean, hopefully we won't have to spend beyond what you would authorize if this resolution is approved, and then that'll get us through the project. Carrie can worry about how to handle the insurance payout when it comes back to us, but it wouldn't be needed above what the board would be approving in this resolution.
Okay.
And the second,
Mr. Hairston, second.
still noted, Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Hairston.
Yes.
Ms. Fryer,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Exhibit 10 is the Second Amendment to the year 2023 appropriation, whereas Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.40 provides for the amendment of an appropriation measure when necessary. Whereas the aggregate of all appropriate classifications does not exceed the total amount submitted to the Cuyahoga County Budget Commission. Now therefore be resolved that the sums indicated in the attached Second Amendment to the year 2023 appropriation schedule be approved. So moved.
Second.
And then Carrie, just what's the major change there?
We're appropriating funds in the special revenue funds mainly for all the grants that are going before you today. And for the Burning Foundation grant and the capital projects for the 300,000, and then the Lorraine and the Huff project increases. And then Exhibit 11's increase. So it's just increases in the appropriation for special revenue funds for the grants, and then in the capital project funds for the grant, and then the budget increases.
Ms. Bunce,
Yep.
Mr. Corrigan.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mr. Hairston.
Yes.
Ms. Fryer. And Mr. Parker.
Exhibit 11, a resolution authorizing agreement with Art Therapy Studio for the programming during 2023. Whereas Art Therapy Studio is a nonprofit corporation that was founded in 1967 and is dedicated to the mission of enhancing individuals' quality of life through therapeutic art. Whereas since 2016, the library is contracted with Art Therapy Studio to provide art workshops to youth as a means of teaching teens self-expression through artistic media. Whereas in January of 2021, the board authorized the library into agreement to provide a total of 288 group art workshops during 2021 for up to 8 youth per group using a virtual meeting platform at a total fee of $37,440. Whereas the library entered into agreement in June of 22 to provide 144 group art section workshops through January 31, 2023 for a total projected cost of $22,393.50. Whereas the Art Therapy Studio has proposed to enter into a new agreement to provide a total of 245 group art workshops from February 1, 2023 through January 31, 2024, for up to 8 people per group at various CPL locations, for a total fee of $34,418.70, with the programming to align with the Cleveland Reads Initiative by promoting literacy and relating programs with library themes. Whereas the library administration finds Art Therapy Studios proposed maximum fee of $34,418.70 to be fair and reasonable, and hereby request the board to authorize the executive director enter into a contract with Art Therapy Studio for programming during 2023. Now therefore be resolved. The Board of Trustees authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designee to enter into an agreement with Art Therapy Studio for art therapy programming during the year 2023 for a total cost not to exceed $34,418.70, which shall be charged to the Founders Fund account professional services, and which agreement shall be subject to the review and approval of the Director of Legal Affairs. So moved.
Second. Can I ask more questions about this again? Which branches are getting the art therapy groups?
Sure, so we currently have Huff, Sterling, East 131st Branch, and West Park. And then we also, we plan on implementing additional senior programming, art therapy programming throughout this year.
So it sounds wonderful to have 245 in just these few. So I assume once you start an art therapy group, it's repeating, the group keeps repeating at that same time and place. And so kids who get started can keep doing that.
It does, but they also wrote the agreement to allow for flexibility so that we can pilot certain programs such as some weeks of programming for seniors or adult self-care workshops. And
Oh,
things
so
like
even
that.
though it's targeted to teens, it could be not only teens.
Yeah, let me say during the year 2020, when we shut down, we started piloting self-care workshops for adults as well, because it was greatly needed during that time. And the adults and seniors really enjoyed that. And we saw an uptick in attendance, programming attendance. And so they write it to allow us, if we need to make any adjustments, we can do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 12, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Legal Works, Inc. for legal service clinics. Whereas Legal Works, Inc. is a nonprofit organization that addresses the needs of youth and adults in underserved communities by offering an array of legal services such as expungements, obtaining certificates of qualified employment, clearing capias wardens, and representation in criminal matters. Whereas the library partnered with the Legal Works in 2022 to provide legal service clinics to low-income residents at 3 Cleveland Public Library branches. Whereas the library administration finds Legal Works' goal to be consistent with the library's goal of providing meaningful outreach programs to Cleveland residents. The library desires to continue to partner with Legal Works for the 2023 calendar year. Now therefore be resolved, the executive director is designee is authorized to enter into and execute an agreement with Legal Works, Inc. an amount not to exceed $56,000, which agreement shall be subject to the approval of the library's director of legal affairs, and which amount shall be charged to the Founders Fund account number 203-80103-53710 professional services. So moved.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Exhibit 13, a resolution authorizing purchase of furniture for IT offices, whereas the library has been working on the renovation of the IT department offices in the lower level of the Stokes wing. Whereas part of this project, administration needs to purchase office furniture for the library IT members who will be working in the 4 renovated IT department offices and 8 cubicles. Whereas the library saw cost proposals from various vendors and received the following 4 quotes. Whereas the Inspire Workspace Interiors was found to be the lowest in cost and is a vendor in which with the library has factorly on previous occasions to supply furniture to other project. And whereas Workplace Interiors has proposed to supply the furniture for the IT department office spaces at a cost not to exceed $49,370.41. And the library desires to enter into a purchase agreement with Inspire Workplace Interiors for the furniture. Now therefore be it resolved that the board of the library hereby authorizes executive director, CEO, or his designee to enter into an agreement with National Electro Coatings Incorporated, doing business as Inspire Workplace Interiors, for the purchase and delivery of furniture for the IT department offices for a total contract price not to exceed $49,370.41, subject to the approval of the Director of Legal Affairs, with expenditure being charged to the general fund account 1301055-55510 furniture. So moved.
Ms. Bunt,
Second,
Mr. Gordon?
yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 14, a resolution authorizing the agreement with Professional Service Industries Incorporated for engineering support services at the Glenville branch. Whereas on November 17, 2022, the board authorized the library to enter agreement by Lasky Partners Architects LLC to provide architectural design services for the renovation and potential expansion of the Glenville branch, which is being funded in large part by a generous grant to the library from the Jack Joseph and Morton Mandel Foundation. Whereas Professional Services, in order to aid the architect and construction manager, the library is determined that it's necessary to train services of an engineering firm to provide surveying, geotechnical, environmental materials testing, and other engineering support services that may be needed during the course of the project. Whereas Professional Service Industries has worked with the library to provide similar services for phase 1 and phase 1A and 1B projects, the facilities master plan. The library has been pleased with the services provided. And whereas pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 153.71, when the estimated cost of professional design services for a particular project will be less than $50,000, the library may select a professional design firm that it determines to be the most qualified from among the qualified design firms on file. Whereas the library has determined Professional Service Industries, Inc. is the most qualified firm among the firms on file to perform the needed engineering support services for the Glenville branch project. Whereas Professional Service Industries has proposed to provide the engineering support services needed for Glenville project for a total fee of $71,000, of which $41,000 consists of design services as defined in 153.65, and $24,000 consists of other engineering support services beyond the scope of revised code section 153.65, and $4,000 consists of the contingency to cover additional unforeseen work that may be required during the course of the project. Now therefore be it resolved that the board finds that Professional Services Industries, Inc. is the most qualified firm among the firms on file to perform the engineering and engineering support services needed at the Glenville branch, and that their proposed fee is fair and reasonable, and be further resolved that the board authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designated to negotiate and execute an agreement with Professional Services Industries, Inc., subject to the approval and review of the Director of Legal Services for the engineering support services for the Glenville branch renovation project for a total contract price not to exceed $71,000 to be charged to the building repair fund account 40174805300-11748 construction improvements. So moved.
Ms. Bunt,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
The balance of the Finance Committee report consists of the Fiscal Officers Report, Report A, the Report on Investments, Report B for the previous month, Report on Conference and Travel Expenditures, similarly for the previous month, Report C, Report all vendor expenditures, Report D, Report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency funds for the Huff, Jefferson, West Park, Woodland, Central Distribution Facility, Lorraine, Eastman, MLK Junior, Brooklyn, and Rockport projects. Report E, and Report F, the report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency fund for the high-density shelving project here in the Stokes Wing. That would conclude the Finance Committee.
I'm gonna set a timer next time, because that was.
I'm trying to
Thank
get
you.
that last paragraph said as fast as possible.
No. We're now gonna move into the Human Resource Committee report. Trustee Harrison, please.
Exhibit 15 is our Cleveland Public Library involvement report. Very briefly today, one of the board of trustee members brought up in our conversation questions about are we staffed up yet? So that gives you a little bit of response to that. See if in fact you needed anything else, so it's quite obvious just to just put down 10 more people or whatever it is there. The process of staffing up. That's it. We're meeting the needs, Leanne or Belton, by approving this, or are we looking at other folks who are gonna be hired?
Oh, you will see a great number of folks still need to be hired. We're still probably about 80 to 100 employees down from where we need to be.
Okay.
So just doing a massive, kind of employment process as they are to get 20 to 25 people takes a lot of effort. And then they're kind of see where they are and then go from there. What happens, unfortunately, is the domino approach. Many of these folks who are moving into these positions are employees right now. So when they take the positions, it just leaves their position of, yeah.
But as we open up branches that have been closed, that'll all work itself out.
Yeah.
And I would also add, we're in good conversations with our union partners to also see if we might relax some of the contractual posting requirements to expedite hiring as well. So
we're all planning on looking from the outside.
yeah, we certainly need to introduce new people from the outside. I think you'll see in this report, there are about 35 positions filled in January. And that's probably about half and half from internal movement, as the director just mentioned, as well as external hires. That's about the capacity we could do on a monthly basis. But I would also say that, the library is not immune to the employment environment out there. So we also have to take steps to make sure that the proposition we're offering to candidates is sufficient and acceptable to them. It's a very competitive market.
It's competitive. That's what I'm trying to figure where you're coming from. Does that answer the question that board trustee member had? Okay, we'll pay a lot of attention to it. Thank you very much. I move it for adoption of exhibit 15.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Ms. Pryor?
Yes.
And Mr. Carter?
Yes. Exhibit 16 is a resolution to adopt Ohio deferred compensation and employee benefits role 457 option. Anybody have any questions with that? Then you want to give us a quick synopsis.
Ask Brian.
Brian, want to give us a quick synopsis? I see you dressed down today.
Yeah, just the bow tie today.
Okay.
So this resolution asks for the board to adopt what are known as Roth 457 options to the library's two existing 457B plans that are offered through the Ohio Deferred Compensation and through VOIA employee benefits. Currently, the library allows staff to contribute to what's known as a 457B plan. It's retirement income, it's retirement savings that is entirely voluntary on the part of the employee. And with a traditional 457B plan, the employee puts their money in before there's any tax taken out on it. So it doesn't show up on your W-2 in the year that that you've earned it. Instead, when you go into retirement and you withdraw the funds, then you get taxed on it in retirement. What the Roth 457B option is it pulls a taxation up front. So you're taxed on the money now if you elect to do the 457 Roth plan. And then when you go into retirement and you start taking out qualified distributions, you pay no tax on it at that time. So for employees interested in getting into the nitty-gritty of tax planning for their retirement, we'd like to offer both options to employees.
Thanks.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Wow,
I think
that was good, Brian.
I know, and that's so interesting because that doesn't change if the tax amounts change when you're ready to retire. So because you were taxed at this amount Am I right, Karen?
Yeah, if you're taxed right now, you're taxed at your taxable rate, which isn't very favorable normally to employees when they're working. They're paying the most tax when they're working, and you pay the less tax when you retire. So, mainly you like to have a pre-tax deduction
Yeah.
than a post-tax, but
That's what I was
But it's
thinking too,
good to
but you're taxing
diversify
a set
because-
amount of today, and you don't know what the tax amount's gonna be when you retire.
No, and then you're also gonna be taxed on your pension and other tax deferred.
So
retirement
I like
savings.
that.
The advantage on Roth though is that
You pay that tax.
Well.
there are not the same, there's not the same penalties for slow spend down on the Roth.
Right.
Because you paid the
Right.
taxes. So in a way, by paying the taxes now, you can avoid spending those savings longer. And you won't be taxed except as they are there. So you can basically spread out when you receive them more. Right now, on an ordinary, although I think the new tax law changed it, but an ordinary IRA, you start paying penalties if you don't take 10% of it out a year after
Mhm.
age 72. No.
It's
they just-
it's 73 now.
It's 70, they
They
moved it.
they
back.
moved it back a year.
Okay, I know it is something.
Yeah.
You're too young.
The reason I know about it, that's why I told Lynn, that's let everybody know.
Thank you.
I can't get any of it unless you want to loan me something.
Did we vote on that?
No.
You ready to do it now? Whereas on October 20, 1976, the Board of Library Trustees adopted a deferred compensation program pursuant to section 457B of the Internal Revenue Code offered to the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Compensation Board, now known as the Ohio Deferred Compensation, that afforded staff the option of participating in a voluntary retirement savings plan to supplement other retirements and pension benefits available to them by saving and invested in prepaid dollars. Resolved that the Board of Trustees authorize the Executive Director, CEO, or his designee to execute such instruments or agreements as are necessary with Ohio Deferred Compensation employee benefits to adopt the Roth 457 option in connection with the library's existing 457B plans administered by Ohio Deferred Compensation employee benefits instruments or agreement should be subject to approval of the library directors or legal affairs. Thank you for your explanation. I move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Exhibit 17 is a retirement recognition citation. Sherry Boyd, 33 years of service, at the Glenville branch. Elizabeth Brown Patterson, branch clerk at Cottonwood branch. Be it resolved that the citation for the above staff members be presented by the Board of Trustees in appreciation of their faithful and dedicated services given to the library by them, be recorded in the minutes of this meeting, and be it further resolved that the citation be sent to them forthwith if they're not present at this meeting of the Board of Trustees. So move.
Second.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker? Yes.
That's the extent of my report.
And trustee Hester, just so you know, there is a staff grouping working on what kind of get together we will have for all our folks.
That comes out of the Felcom fund.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we have money for that coming out of the, was it Lockwood Thompson Fund that was for retirees, so. And the Stevens Fund, so they're working on that.
Thank you, trustee Harrison.
Thank you.
We're now gonna move into the community service report. Trustee Parker, please.
Yes, we have a monthly activity report. For geez, that's a lot of things. Ages of active card holders, new cards issued, it's great to look at.
One of the things I can't get over how much e-media circulation.
Yeah,
We're basically in the ebook department for the month of January, we had more than 40,000 ebooks borrowed.
Mhm.
That's just amazing. It shows you how keeping up with technology matters.
right, matters a lot. Now go to our building status update. Is there any other information you want to share with us?
Just a few general things on the capital program front. Pleased to announce that we kicked off the Glenville project. Thanks to the board for approving the engineering services today. Those topographic surveys and geotechnical borings are going to be critical to the architects. We're through programming and into schematic design and did their community engagement sessions through Thursday Action Lab at the branch over the last 2 weeks. There'll be a second round of those sessions in the next phase. In terms of the property management side, what's in the report is pretty typical maintenance, but the report's always in arrears. So recently, we have had a few building casualties I want to make you aware of. At South Brooklyn, the main air handler is down, so there's no forced air heat at the moment, but that branch does have a dual heating system with perimeter radiant heat. So we're holding temperatures there while we're working on repairs to the air handler. At Carnegie West, the elevator is down and it's down hard. It actually failed during the recent maintenance testing requiring replacement of the main piston. We're working with vendor now and scheduling, but it's going to be some heavy machining of the new parts. And so I expect that elevator to be down possibly for a period of a few months.
Which elevator is it?
Carnegie West.
Yeah, to get the wheelchair.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the floor of that building is a good 16 feet above grade. So we're working on potential temporary solutions while we're trying to accelerate the repair of the elevators.
And nobody was on.
No, it was actually down for service, being tested, and that's when. I think those are the items I wanted to mention.
Thank you. Now look to see if there's any update from advocacy task force.
Yeah, so Shanice is out sick today, so I've been texting back and forth with Michelle Francis because she sent us all the library directors a note last night that obviously HB1 that is being put forward is, they are working diligently and all through the night to work on trying to find a way to kind of, make it go away, eliminate the rollback, create a 2.75% flat rate, which she said calls it basically a double whammy against the funding. And they're working with Howard Fleeter to get them to examine how much of a loss that would be to libraries. But this is for libraries, state, all government workers would feel the loss of the funding here. So they are having meetings between all of the lobbyists in Columbus to decide how they can, what the best strategy on that. So we'll continue to keep you updated as the board on what is happening, but as she said, it's really in the early stages. They just announced it yesterday. It's a long process. Senate, the governor will weigh in. So, but it's something that we really don't want to happen.
Anything from the foundation?
Yes, we want to thank all of the folks, the foundation wanted to thank all the folks who have helped out with Cleveland Reads. And because of that, we have something to show everyone. You look at the monitor here, hopefully we'll be able to get this. This is our own trusty partner.
Your name is exalted. Your name is exalted. Above everything. In time of sorrow, in time of pain, your name is be exalted. Above my worry and above my words, your name is here. Be exalted. Your name is exalted. Your name is exalted. Your name is exalted. Above everything. I say your name is exalted. Your name is.
So, yes, we give. So Trustee Parker was performing at the Maltz Arts Performance Center, full house, right? And he was kind enough to invite the library to be able to come there. So Shanice and Connie Hill Johnson got up and spoke on behalf of Cleveland Reads. And, we just want to thank you for that. And they took, like Shanice was like sending me this text at night at the performance. She's like, did you know Trustee Parker could sing?
Nice.
Very nice.
Are you blushing over there?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So only one update. We will be happy to introduce at the next board meeting to Ashley Boyd, who has just been hired as the new director of diversity and inclusion for the Cleveland Public Library. She is, coming to us from the Cuyahoga County Development and Disabilities Department. And she is, I had an opportunity to sit down with her and I was just thoroughly impressed. So I'm welcoming the opportunity to next board meeting. We'll bring her on, we'll bring on the new Director of Arts and Culture. And of course, we want to commend Miss Erica Marks, who is now permanent in her position.
Thank you.
That's it for diversity, equity, and
She's
inclusion.
another example of why we have people hired who have wonderful smiles.
Well, that's the end of the community service report.
Thank you. We're now going to move into some new business, which I will take it as part of the president's report as well. We had a meeting with the board members and we're looking to adopt and make some new changes. We have a resolution to amend and update the regulations of the Board of Library Trustees, Exhibit 18.
Second.
Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Ms. Fryer.
Yes.
And Mr. Parker.
Yes.
This resolution will be placed on the board agenda at the next regular meeting of the Board of Library Trustees, at which time the Library Trustees may vote on its passage as required by Article 17 of the regulation, which states that no amendment of the regulations shall be finally acted upon until the next regular meeting after the same shall have been proposed. The other one will be the resolution to approve the library board procedures. Whereas the library board is continually endeavoring to improve the effectiveness of its work in order to have a better library system. And whereas the board currently has a number of new members, and whereas the members of the board suggest adoption of new procedures that would enhance even further the responsiveness and effectiveness of the board. Now therefore be it resolved that the following procedures and standards of conduct, many of which are already incorporated in the trustees adopted policy manual dated January 1976, be approved and established as the accepted guidelines in conjunction with the policy manual dated January 1976 for board procedure. There are new 11 that we have identified. So I move that for adoption.
Second. Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Ms. Fryer.
Yes.
And Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Okay, and that actually will be moved as well. And we do have a new board engagement guide, which will be included in the minutes. It has been updated with the new outlines. Okay. At this time, I don't know if we have any additional public, or the director's report. I'm sorry, Director.
Oh, no, I'm not sure if after springing that on Trustee Parker, I should say anything.
Oh,
So, no, the only thing I wanted to mention, and we will be every month, and actually every week, there will be a announcement made at the beginning of the week to provide Cleveland Reads numbers, but the numbers are moving up. As far as minutes, we're almost at 30,000. I mean, as far as books read so far, we're at nearly 30,000 books having been read and over 150,000 minutes having been read. So moving forward, the crew is starting to get everything taken care of. The technology that goes along with it, that's starting to fall into place and move forward, and just everything is kind of moving into place. So please keep talking to your community members and friends about it and letting them know. We had a little snafu as far as prizes. Or prizes are coming in, and we'll do a big kickoff for prizes and incentives during Read Across America Day, which is March 2nd.
I have two questions for you, Director. One is, where are we at in thinking about getting a counter?
So
I know we talked about it at our last meeting.
yeah,
And
I think Erica's been
Erica,
looking at that.
thank you.
I can answer that. So, we have a widget that we put on the website, and so we manually enter that information weekly. So we pull the stats from Dean Stack, and then Jen Jumba, she adds that information onto the Cleveland Reads website.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
I've talked, John Malcolm is trying to figure out how do you take that widget and then create like a little mini app to turn that into a counter. So they're working on it.
Okay, I was just wondering, I know we talked about it.
Because we're working with another company who can't give us the information in a way we want. So it goes through our staff who then enter it directly. So it seems like it should be a lot easier than it is, but we're my sense of it is by the end of the first quarter, which is March 31st, to be able to have all of these things kind of better represented for everyone to be able to see.
Is the city of Cleveland thinking about joining us and having a counter someplace at City Hall as well? Since this is a joint effort, I think they need to be doing, I just think it's a great idea with the Cleveland Reads. And just let the community know by having a counter visible, not only just like on the website, people could see or kids could see, way I need to step up my game, or it might be an incentive for some folks.
Well, if we can get the technology fixed and figure it out, we can have different places across the city to have the actual because a lot of our partners would have a TV or something up with the number running. That's really smart.
And my last question is, how is housing court going at South Branch?
So you want to answer this one?
Sorry, Erica.
Because we were just talking about this yesterday.
Oh, wow.
She just got promoted, so.
We got it.
No, so we actually just met with them earlier this week. Housing court is going great at South, and they are ready to, I want to say, add 3 additional locations. And we hope to have that done by June.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, they're very eager. Yeah, eager is a word that is a way of saying it, to move this ahead, which is good. So they've been happy with how things have gone this out.
Just thought about that last week.
Yeah.
Really excited about that.
So when you have, my husband actually was in the Senate, and he was the one who proposed the Cleveland have a housing court instead of having a different judge at housing court every month. So when they created that housing court, so I was trying to imagine, we have a housing court judge who handles the whole city, but when if we would have 3 different branches, 4 different branches, so there's a magistrate or someone who sits at South right now, or
No.
How does that work?
Bailiff will be there.
It's a
yeah,
bailiff?
We're doing everything virtually, so we're trying to streamline it for our patrons when they come in. It's kind of just come in, phone their touch screen, so, and we can walk them through our staff that we train.
Right, so it's all virtual. You still have the same housing court judge, but that's very cool. Thanks.
I thought that was neat too. I was just so funny. I thought about that. Well, if there's no public comment or anything, I move this meeting be adjourned.
Second.
Alice.
Oh, yes, I forgot to give you something.
I looked. Do we? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wondered, is it possible for us to take I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Take a photo with you after the meeting. So we want to send it to Sun Press.
Of course. Yes, yes. We probably should have done it sooner than later. My
This I
apologies.
was supposed to say during the director's report.
Okay.
It's one down for each of you. One of the books that Felton gave us one time is called Eviction.
Yes.
I suggest that you have not read it.
Oh, wow.
Is this
That's one of the
another
best books
countywide
written.
reading
Yeah,
type thing?
It's one of the best legal books written.
Oh, cool.
Which one was that?
So
Eviction.
the county library's doing this too,
Yeah, so
It's-
this is the one community reads.
right?
So all the systems.
All the
Right.
systems along with the city club are working on this title as the one book to read for the county. And so we just wanted to make sure that the board had an opportunity to get the book and read through it, so.
Thank you. By Andrea.
Thank you. And the meeting's adjourned. Do we have did we take a roll already, Michael? We did? Perfect. Thank you. I hope this is okay.